and welcome to Youth Assembly. My name is Sylvia Ishibe. Yes. Today, this new week, we are starting off with the Electoral Amendment Bill, the implication of the alleged removal of the electronic transmission of results. So last week, we saw the buzz on social media and offline when there was an allegation by the Alliance of Civil Society Organization for Expansion of Electoral and Democratic Space, saying that the National Assembly, amongst other things, rejected the electronic transmission of votes in the final copy now of the electoral bill. Now, this they made through a press briefing on Monday, July 5th, 2021. Now, the House of Rep leader, which is Femi Jabiamila, has also come out to debunk the rumor, but we will have to see what that means, what he said over the course of this show today. But with me, joining me online is Moshood Issa. Moshood Issa is a good governance advocate. Welcome, Moshood.
Thank you very much. And a credible election advocate too.
Oh, yes. So he's a credible election advocate, and he has a lot to say today on the show. Okay, so let's start with the buzz last week. When you saw it, we want to answer so many questions on the show today. And one of such is, what's the implication of that kind of allegation? Why are people talking about it? And why did it make so much noise on social media last week and off it? So how did you feel when you saw that happen, the allegation, through the press briefing? Mr. Moshood?
So I think it's confirmed a lot of doubts people have on the National Assembly. First, because the National Assembly had initially promised to pass this Electoral Amendment Act right from December last year. It was moved to March 2021, later moved to June 2021. And up till now, we are still awaiting the passage. So it brings a lot of concern and doubt. So when that news popped up, a lot of eyebrows were raised. Some of us were disappointed, but not necessarily surprised, because the bill has been guarded jealously right from the time they held the public hearing. I was at the public hearing on the electoral amendment in December 2020, and a lot of recommendations were made. And top in this list of recommendations is, of course, electronic transmission of election results. So when the news popped up, well, we're not surprised, but we're a bit disappointed that the National Assembly might have something up their sleeves or planning to do something else. But again, I just wish and hope it stops at this alleged, and it should remain alleged. And I'm glad that civil society organization and the media were able to leak this and pop up with this information to know that people are actually following the process entirely, even though this should be as transparent as possible right from time. But then, unfortunately, since after the public hearing, it has been a bit more like an open secret how the electoral amendment process is going on. We're supposed to have a technical committee that should be working on this, which should include representatives of the CSOs. But unfortunately, this has not been as transparent as it should be right from time. So
why do you say that it has not been as transparent? You've been there at the hearing of this bill, but why do you say it's not been transparent enough?
First, because the Senate President himself he made a remark during the public hearing and saying, we'll pass this bill by March 2021. The fact that they didn't miss that deadline is a red flag, and it shows that a lot of things are going behind the scene, and people don't know. People were not getting updated information on what is going on around the process and what is actually delaying. Up till now, we don't know what is actually delaying it. Two promises, none has been fulfilled. We passed it March 2021, first quarter, and this is second quarter gone already. We're in July and we're still around, will they even implement what Nigerians actually request? So it brings a lot of concern really around our electoral democracy.
Okay, so last Tuesday, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Bajabiamila, actually came out during plenary to debunk the rumors making rounds about the the alleged removal of the electronic transmission of results. Now, the speaker concluded by stating that the House would only consider the authentic electoral bill. So, what do you think, in your own opinion, does the speaker mean by the authentic bill?
So when the idea of when even coming up and saying we would pass the authentic bill, meaning there is a counterfeit bill somewhere, right?
So, is
Coming
it
up to say,
okay?
oh, coming up
And
to say we'll pass the
how do you
authentic one,
interpret
meaning
that? How do you interpret that? The
yeah,
counterfeit
that's my
one, is that
interpretation of
what
it. Meaning
the CSOs are saying, or the yes, the people who are alleging that it was there's the removal of the electronic voting? Is that the authentic one that they are talking about, or maybe the counterfeit one you're insinuating now?
so of course there's no smoke without fire. And
Okay.
if he had come out to say, oh, the allegations were wrong, the bill we have would support electronic transmission, I'll have probably taken his word for it. But when he said, oh, would pass the authentic one, he's insinuating that, oh, there's another bill circulating which is not authentic. And of
Okay.
course, when this kind of information pops up, we always see, of course, there used to be an iota of truth in it. And the first thing I expected from the speaker, of course, is to come and debunk it and deny it. And then let me just even burst your bubble. The Coalition for Electoral Reform are set to have a press conference about the fact that the National Assembly are planning to use voice vote to determine if they want to pass an electoral act that has an electronic transmission. A voice vote simply imply
Yes.
those for say yeah and those again say nay, and we know who always have it. You understand? So that again is a major issue. If you are using voice votes and not citizens' concerns or citizens' top priorities, and then it's a major problem. If you go back and we watch the public hearing, virtually everyone that made presentation that day wanted electronic transmission. That should be a no-brainer. But coming out to even plan that saying, oh, you use a voice vote, meaning the 109 members of Senate might just determine the fate of 200 million Nigerians, rather than those that made presentation during the public hearing. As a matter of fact, like I said, the Coalition for Electoral Reform are set to even have a press conference this morning, or currently ongoing. Hey, National Assembly are planning to use a voice vote to determine if they are passing the Electoral Act using electronic transmission, which is indeed another major concern. So, like I said, there shouldn't be issue of authentic or counterfeit bill. We should have one bill that answers the concerns of Nigerians, which has been really glaring, and what Nigerians want. Electronic transmission is just one out of many important provisions that must be passed in this Electoral Amendment Act, and is long overdue.
All right. Okay. So, but why do you think that somebody or anybody would be against the electronic transmission of the votes, which, like you stated, many Nigerians are advocating for? When we've seen the success of it in Edo and Ondo state elections, but this move to still remove it, well, is alleged, is still there.
So I wouldn't indict anybody individually, but of course, anyone that is against something that would improve our electoral process, actually, probably that person knows that that person is not likely to win a credible process. And if
Mm.
um, if if politicians survive by a flawed process, they wouldn't want anything that would improve the process and make it more transparent. Yes, the transmission electronically was piloted in Edo and Ondo. Of course, it's called the INEC Result Viewing Portal. Not automatically an electronic transmission, but of course, an alternative to the manual transmission. But according to the laws at the moment, the manual process, it's still the one that we are using. So anyone that doesn't want the process to be improved, to be more transparent, means they might not necessarily survive a credible process. And I used to say that our politicians would prefer a flawed process that they will win, rather than a credible process that they will lose. That's the only thing you can just attribute to the reason why people might not want to accept an electronic transmission of election results.
So, what other impacts do you think this will have on our election in Nigeria, the credibility of elections in Nigeria generally?
So to be honest, the Electoral Commission are making immense efforts to improve the process. But unfortunately, when they take one step forward, either the political actors, I remember the former INEC chair, Professor Atari Juga, once said, the political actors, politicians are actually the bane of our electoral democracy. And there's no lie in that at all. When the Electoral Commission take one step further to improve the process, politicians in their way take two steps ahead to to find a way to manipulate the process or to circumvent laws. So when there are issues around preventing electronic transmission, it begins to bring doubts. At the moment, the election we had in, let's say, 2003, 7 were really terrible, and people were losing confidence in the process. And this is the time that the commission are doing everything possible to get people to boost people's confidence in the process. So one, if you cannot achieve that, I mean you're not boosting people's confidence in the process, and we are already complaining of voter apathy. The last election we had, we had more than 50%
Hello, Mr. Moshood.
when it comes to
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's about boosting citizens' confidence in the process, and the best way we can do it is to tell them that we are doing everything possible to ensure
Wow.
that the election is transparent and people's votes count. But if we don't do that, we cannot boost citizens' confidence, and people will not participate. Yes.
All right. Okay. At this point, I would like to introduce another guest in joining us online also, Mr. Joe Otubasi. He is a media and communications officer at Youth Alive Foundation. Welcome, Mr. Joe.
It's great to be here. Welcome. Good
Yes.
afternoon.
Well,
Good morning,
thank
rather.
you. Thank you for joining us today on this
Yeah.
important discussion. We're looking at the Electoral Amendment Bill, the implication of the alleged removal of the electronic transmission of results. Okay, so you've been in the background hearing Mr. Moshood speak a lot about the impact of this, the removal, what it would do to the credibility of Nigerians' election. What's your own opinion? But before you give us your opinion, this is Click Niger. In case you're just tuning in or joining us on our website or wherever you're joining us from, or even on YouTube or Facebook. Thank you for choosing to be here at this time. Please feel free to ask your questions or even contribute to this show today, and we will answer as the show progresses. Okay, thank you for joining us. Okay, over to you, Mr. Joe. What is your
All
opinion
right.
of this alleged removal
So
of
I think
the
I totally agree with Mr. Moshood on everything he
okay.
has said. This move, it's more or less like a threat to democracy itself. Section 50, subsection 2, completely erases the use of of the electronic transmission. And for us, that has been an issue for the civic space and civil society organizations, basically. And that is why we have seen people protest, and they have been bombarding both the Senate leaders with calls. Just recently, the Senate leader, Ahmed Lawan, actually reached out and said people shouldn't reach out to him personally, that they should reach out to their senators representing their constituencies and get them to effect these changes on the bill. I think they are feeling the pressure at this point in time. And this is the essence of civil society, basically. When we see an anomaly, we have to stand in that gap and fix it, basically. And there are three issues that we are demanding for. The issue of the removal of the
Okay.
electronic transmission of results, the reduction in the limit of campaign expenditures, then the power for INEC to review results made under duress. If they can't address this, then democracy itself is threatened. So let's go back and look at the value chain that speaks to the electoral electronic processes in the states or in Nigeria. Basically, we have had Nigerians over time, or INEC over time, use the electronic and the biometric registration for voters. We have also used electronic accreditation too, using the smart cards as well. We have used electronic means to accredit observers too as well. Equally, in electoral results in Edo and Ondo states, we have been able to effectively use the electronic method as well. So why then would you truncate the process of having results electronically transmitted? Now, the process of moving results right from the polling unit up until it gets to INEC, there
Okay.
is, I can assure you that the result, the numbers would always be doctored at every point in time. If you're moving from the polling unit, that
Yeah.
transition alone causes a reduction in the numbers or an anomaly in the numbers itself. So these are things that we need to address. Basically, we understand that the weakest link in our electoral system is the result collaboration, collation, and transmission process. So if we have been able to detect that as an issue, why can't we effect it? Why do we have lawmakers who are standing on behalf of what we, the constituents, and they can't speak on our behalf, basically? So I think
Hmm.
it's a
Some
fundamental
people
issue. Yeah.
are thinking that what's the big deal really if the results are transmitted electronically or manually? That is still the same results. No matter how long it takes, it will still be the same results that will be read out or published. What do you make of this?
But I've just given you a breakdown. If it's transmitted manually, there is a process,
Yes.
that delay itself. You're giving room for people to doctor the result. You're giving room for a time lag itself. The advantage of the electronic process is that what results are certified at the polling unit and immediately they are transmitted electronically to INEC. That is how it should be. Any further delay causes an anomaly. We all are aware that yes, at the polling unit we have we have different people gathered around waiting to listen to the results of the election itself. Anything can happen at that point in time.
All right. At this point, also, I also have Damian Mara joining us. At this point, I would like you to be a part of the discussion. Also, to give us your opinion on this electoral amendment bill, the alleged implication or the alleged removal of the electronic transmission of results and its implication. Welcome, Damian. Damian Maro is a techpreneur.
Uh, a very, very good morning to our listeners and our viewers. I'm delighted to be on the show this morning.
Yeah.
And so thank you very much. So firstly, I want to say that based on what we are talking about this morning, the inter-party Congress or the inter-party group that is a conglomerate of all the political parties that came out to totally condemn that action by the National Assembly because they had made their position during the hearing for the passage of that bill and made it very clear the position of all the political parties in Nigeria that they wanted an electronic voting system. And that was the position that all the political parties took. And then that was what they actually heard. But when it came to the committee level and National Assembly, they actually decided to take out that clause. And so that bill does not represent the intention of all the political parties in Nigeria. Secondly, the Southern Governors Forum also came out totally to condemn that action, and they are not in support of it. And a lot of smaller political parties too came out to say that they are not in support of that position because it does not represent the will of the Nigerian people. Now, having said that, we know very well the issue of voter violence in Nigeria, where you have a strong politician intercepting the transmission of electoral results midway. Sometimes through the use of thugs, sometimes through the use of intimidation. And now the promise that this electoral amendment had was that it would allow, like my colleague there said, a smooth transmission of voter results straight to the collation center. So the possibility of these results being manipulated would have been totally eliminated. However, with the change that what they call them, the House and the Senate actually did was
House of
more like
Representatives.
House of Representatives and the Senate, because it was a joint committee. What they
Okay.
At the
did
National Assembly.
is kind of
Yes.
of National Assembly. Thank you. Was actually they tried to play a fast one, unfortunately. But I'm happy they were actually seen for what action they were about to take, and all these relevant stakeholders have come out to strongly condemn that action. So essentially, that would have saved, if they actually scales through.
Mr. Damian, the Speaker of the House has come out to debunk the rumor and everything.
Yes,
and
I can hear you.
And he concluded by stating that there is an authentic.
Yes, that was because
bill.
Pressure.
Yes. What do you think of this authentic bill?
Yes, that was because of the pressure. He actually admitted. Yeah, he admitted that the House does not. Speaking on behalf of the National Assembly, the Senate President came out to say that he was not the one responsible for that. It was at the committee level. Okay, there was a House committee that was set up, a Senate committee that was set up in partnership with the House of Representatives and the Senate that worked on that document together. And so the Senate President came out to exonerate himself based on pressures and phone calls that he said to have received, that he was not responsible for that it was at the committee level. And so we are now seeing that the House itself is already dissociating itself. I'm talking about the leadership of the National Assembly, dissociating itself from that move. But that is not to say that was not presented. And due to the pressure that has been coming up, the Senate leadership is now trying to say that they have no hand in it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Davian. Yes, you can feel free, if you're just joining us, to drop your comments and even questions if you have any. We have guests here from different works of life who are so learned and knowledgeable about the topic of discussion, Electoral Amendment Bill, implication of the alleged removal of electronic transmission of results, and they will help answer your questions. Okay, so over to you now, Mr. Moshood Issa. Mr. Moshood, so for some Nigerians, there's this fear that anything electronic in Nigeria may create more problems because of internet issues. So if a coalition center expresses internet failure, what do you think should happen in those kind of instances?
Okay, thank you very much. So first, there's a reason why we pilot things before we go into full-fledged. And we just piloted that in Edo and Ondo. As at 3-4 p.m., we had already 70-something% of results already in the INEC result viewing portal. And for Ondo, it even got better, over 90% of results. We're already at the INEC result viewing portal as at 4-5 p.m. on the election day. So we piloted that. INEC must have learned some lessons from that and how to improve upon that. And like we said, there would still be the manual documents that would some kind of back up the electronic transmission. So the idea is to have the electronic process, and we have the manual document that would always back up. Fine, we would always have the issue of internet issue. We do observe election, and for observers that have internet issue, they send their reports when they get to a place where there is good internet. But the idea is that you already impute these results in a safe electronic device, which cannot be tampered with, compared to the manual document where people can easily manipulate results or rewrite it in the process of moving from from polling unit to the ward. You would be surprised to see electoral officials taking bike or keke moving from polling unit to ward. A lot of things can happen within that period, within that time. So, like I said, the commission must have learned from the pilot test they did in Edo and Ondo, know how to improve upon it, and of course, it's I think it's just the best way to go. It will be a very huge improvement on the manual process we have. There are a lot of gaps with the manual process, and the power the returning officer has in announcing results even gives us more reason why we should have this electronic transmission. We can't go back to the fact that in 2019, and the returning officer said he's announcing a result under duress, and the result was still admitted. So if we have an electronic transmission and the manual paper to back it up, the manual will be the backup, while the electronic transmission will be the main result. We wouldn't possibly have that. So, like I said, importantly, we have to sustain this electronic transmission. Of course, the gains far outweighs the shortcomings.
Okay. All right, Mr. Joe. ahead of the passage of the bill, so we await and we hope things go as planned for many Nigerians. What key provisions would you like to see reflected in the law to enhance the credibility and the transparency of our elections?
So, like I had stated earlier, the electronic transmission is not the only issue. We have issues
Okay, other
regarding the power of
issues, yes.
INEC. Yeah, the issue regarding the power of INEC to review the results, the timely release of INEC funds for them to start necessary electoral activities before time, then a reduction in the election expenses. We are seeing some obnoxious figures there, and it makes it hard. It is not inclusive because when you say a person with disability, when you say youth, when you say women should get involved in politics, and you're shooting up the cost for elections into millions, close to hundreds of millions, and it doesn't really make sense because one, if we're speaking on inclusion, then we should be inclusive when we're stating such bills and laws. And then the cap and the cost for nomination forms too as well. So that is it. So basically, even when a survey was carried out in the last elections, majorly APC and PDP had actually stated that they had even spent more than the stipulated amount that was placed for them to carry out elections, both campaigns and purchase of forms and all that, basically. But to add to it, if these claims are actually right, then it is the National Assembly actually telling the Nigerians that we should forget about the credible elections from 2023. This is the National Assembly also institutionalizing corruption as we speak. And we are indirectly legitimizing the disrespect for the rule of law because they are our representatives as we speak.
Okay.
So the whole transmission of of election results is not rocket science. It has been practiced before. Like Moshood had actually said, it's for us to draw learnings from the previous elections. In 2019 elections, actually 65% of polling stations transmitted their results electronically. So it will always improve subsequent elections. So the issue of internet should not even be a problem. We have series of internet service providers. The alternative means that results could always be transmitted electronically.
Okay. Now we have a techpreneur here. So, for Mr. Damian Marrow, what are those alternative means that can actually see that when we eventually go for elections, that those results are transmitted electronically without any issues with internet? Mr. Damian, are you still there? Mr. Damian, I think he's frozen. Okay, so Mr. Damian, when you join us, you will take that question. But you mentioned it, Mr. Joe. What do you think? What are those alternative means that you are talking about?
Well, an alternative means is just like I said, an alternative source of internet service provision itself.
Oh.
And Moshood had actually said it. We could at least take the risks of waiting till we get to an internet coverage area where we could also transmit results. So this is the best time for INEC and NAS to sit back and look at the gaps and see how we can close those gaps and have a better elections come 2023. Already, what we are already doing online through the CVR portal is to ensure that people get registered. Those who have issues with the polling units, they could always update their. Those are things we are doing electronically already. So why would you want to cut this value chain, which we have already started with? We are going forward, not going backwards. So the NAS should actually help this process.
Okay. Mr. Damian, are you here now? Can you hear me? Or can you speak?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
So
I
for
can
so
hear
long,
you.
yes, the question is, for so long, Nigerians have been yearning for credible, free, fair elections. But in most cases, we see what happens. Politicians, most of them, usually have other plans. So do you think the introduction of technology into the process, electoral process, would stop politicians from rigging? Yeah. Or would they just find a way to manipulate the system again, even with technology?
All right. So thank you very much again for that question. Using electronic voting is a system that has been adopted in various parts of the world.
Yeah.
And the essence of what we have seen in other crimes is how effective it has been. And the essence of electronic voting is to try as much as possible to eliminate possibilities of election results being tampered with. Now, one of the major problems we have had in our electoral system has been the issue of rigging. And so when you introduce technology, you're trying to eliminate as much as possible the possibility for rigging, trying to increase the level of transparency. And we have seen from various parts of the world where electronic voting is done that there's a whole, once you can actually eliminate the areas where people can come in and commit fraud, you actually kind of streamline that process. You understand? Now, in our situation, when somebody does electronic voting, that's just one stage. Now, if a vote is actually done at that point and it is immediately translated or transferred straight to the collation center, the possibility of somebody coming in to rig, to tamper with results is totally eliminated. So you have an increase in transparency. So electronic, and that is part of the reason why a lot of people have been canvassing for electronic voting, because most times, if you look at our own electoral system, these are places where the people actually commit these fraud activities during the transmission of votes that are being counted.
Okay. What do you think, Mr. Moshood? Do you agree with him? Rigging will be totally eliminated with technology. Yes. What do you think?
Like I said at the beginning of the show, when the commission take a step further to improve the process, political actors find other ways to circumvent this. But I would say, of course, technology would reduce rigging, at least to the barest minimum. But like I said, politicians always find a way to circumvent these guidelines or these laws that we put in place. But to the barest minimum, this would actually limit electoral malpractice. I totally agree with him.
All right. Okay, I'll take that as your final thoughts. Thank you so much for doing this with us, Mr. Moshood Issa. Mr. Moshood Issa is, you call yourself an electoral advocate, did you say?
Well, a credible election advocate and also a communication.
Yes, election advocate, and he's also a good governance advocate. Do you have any final thoughts, Mr. Joe, before we
Well, basically, mine is an appeal to the National Assembly to support and complement the efforts by citizens and INEC to ensure that we have a credible election. So we should be inclusive. And like my colleague had earlier said, we are not being inclusive. Permit me to say, Gaskia, we are not being inclusive. We have eliminated or slightly eliminated those in the diaspora that would want to be a part of these elections. And now we're coming up with all these clauses that don't really fit in to an inclusive process in elections. I really think we can do better. So it's an appeal to the National Assembly to address this issue before or come 2023.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Davian, any final appeal?
Yeah. Yes, okay. Like you rightly said, I will just want to call on the political class. They should allow fair play, because a lot of people are beginning to think that this was an attempt by the political class to continue or to institutionalize, I wouldn't call it corruption, but electoral fraud. So please, they call on those lawmakers to begin to carry the interest of the well-being of the common people, of Nigerian people, before their own parochial or party interests. So it's a call on them to be credible and to have the interest of Nigeria and the future of Nigerians at heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for doing this with me today.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we've learned a lot, and I hope you watch it. You've learned something, and then if you have questions, still drop it in the comment section. We will definitely respond if we see such questions. We treated Electoral Amendment Bill, in the implication of the alleged removal of electronic transmission of results, and so many points have been noted on the show today. Well, Youth Assembly will make a return next week for another interesting edition. This show was produced by Ioma EKJ and supervised by Ehi Ohiani. My name is Sylvia Ishebe. Have a fantastic Monday, and please stay safe and do wear your face masks. Yes, COVID-19 is real. Okay, bye now, gentlemen. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sylvia. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.